Earlier today, Senator Brian Schatz gave a floor speech calling attention to just how dangerous this all is.
In the authoritarian future that he's clamoring for, he gets to do anything he wants, wielding unparalleled power in the presidency and zero repercussions. That's not a president. That's a dictator. That's not equal justice under the law. That's one law for Trump and another for everybody else. Think about what they're saying and ask yourselves, are you comfortable with that?
I, for one, am not. Senator Brian Schatz, Democrat from Hawaii, joins me now. Senator, I liked what you had to say on the floor about the sort of vision that's laid out. I wonder if that, I mean, we took those hearings live, those arguments in the circuit court live. We let our show on it. Has it penetrated your world? Congress is back in session. You guys are all in the Senate. Like, just what was being argued a few blocks from you?
No, I don't think so. And that's why I gave the floor remarks. Now, we're in the middle of a bunch of very important battles around an emergency supplemental spending bill and the appropriations process and all the rest of the negotiations. And so you can understand why, we're trying to do the work over here. But that's why I went to the floor, is that I do not think that the American public and even the American political community is sufficiently alarmed. Everything you said is right. And I just want to emphasize one essential point, which is that now they are lawyering this up, right? And there was a point at which he was individually acting in an irresponsible way and essentially engaging in stochastic terrorism. But it is much different when the official position of Trump's lawyers is that he could order a murder of his political rivals using SEAL Team 6, and that would be up to the legislature to determine whether or not it was criminal. It's a new Rubicon we've passed, and I think the American public has to wake up to the fact that, look, it's very exhausting to follow Trump, and it is certainly, if you're not a political person, exhausting to constantly hear, did you hear what that guy said? My God, it's crazy. Yeah. American democracy is at stake. But American democracy is at stake, and this is a new turn for him where he's taking the official position that he gets to do whatever he wants.
I want to just follow up on this since I have you here and you're a U.S. Senator who voted in both of those impeachment trials. And because it seems to me your view on this is quite germane, which is to say the argument is that the Senate knew, because it was clear in the Constitution, that the only way the man could be face criminal repercussions afterwards would be to convicted in the Senate, despite the fact that Trump's own lawyers and your fellow Republican senators made the opposite argument. So as a U.S. Senator, was that your understanding of the Constitution?
No, it never was. Look, anybody can be found criminally liable for a crime, including the President of the United States, including the Vice President, including a United States Senator. You break the law, you have to go to jail. Now, when you're doing an impeachment trial, you're trying to measure not whether or not someone committed a statutory crime, which this is violates specific federal laws, but rather high crime and misdemeanor, basically a crime against the public and against the country. So it is a different standard, but you're right. Leader McConnell in particular voted against impeachment and said that the proper jurisdiction for this is in the criminal justice system. And now Trump's lawyers are essentially arguing the opposite, which is, I know we said the proper venue for this was not the Senate, but now that we're in the criminal justice system, you got to go back to the Senate. And so, look, I mean, calls of hypocrisy are rarely particularly effective in politics. Yeah. I do think that however this thing polls, that we are underestimating the power of standing up for American-style democracy and for peace and stability in the republic. And this former president is now using his white shoe law firm, making a very explicit argument that not only can he violate the law, but he can use the American military against his political opponents. It's not like he's saying he can not pay his taxes or jaywalk or use an illegal drug. He's saying, through his lawyers, I can use the most powerful military in the world against my political opponents. And if I've got 34 votes in the Senate to acquit, I get to do whatever I want.
On this final point of the atmosphere that's been created as someone who was in the Capitol on January 6th on that day, and also who lives in public life, and again, I want to try to be as fair as possible here, which is to say that across the spectrum, people face nasty phone calls, they face death threats, they face swatting. Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think, was a victim of this. So this is despicable behavior in all of its permutations across the ideological spectrum. But it does seem to me there's a particular difference here, which is Trump's obvious encouragement of it, failure to condemn it, sort of stoking of it, which just is different than I think almost basically any political figure, again, across the partisan or ideological divide.
That's right. And it's important to point, Steve Scalise was a victim of political violence. There are a lot of people on the right of center who have been victims of political violence, and it should be condemned left, right, and center. But your point is exactly the right one. You do not find Democratic leaders expressing enthusiasm for political violence against our adversaries, right? My view is our adversaries are our adversaries. They're not our actual enemies, right? And in the political context, politics is supposed to be a substitute for war and for violence. It is not supposed to be a precursor for it.